Hello again. You find me sitting in a very sunny afternoon. It's about nearly 2 o'clock here in Bhopal, and as you see, the sun is shining beautifully after we've had a few days of the freezing cold. Not freezing literally, of course. It never does that in Bhopal. It's December the 22nd, and it's about, as I said, 2 in the afternoon, 2019, and I'm updating you on what's happened in the last week. It's been cold. The weather is not usually much to talk about, but here this week it has been, because a few days ago, just before last weekend, in fact, it bucketed down with rain, with lightning and thunder all around us, and Chingari went dark and it lost all the lights, and everybody went home in the little bits of rain still going on after we sat with a chai waiting for the rain to cease. But since then, the last 3 or 4 days, it's been really quite mild and quite nice and warm and sunny. It's different though from the UK, because in the UK even if it's cold, we've got central heating to go inside to. Here, like a day like today, inside the rooms is actually colder than outside. So a lot of people will sit outside, and in fact you might be able to see in the background behind my left ear 2 young women doing what young women in Bhopal on a sunny Sunday afternoon do on a rooftop. Actually, I can't see at the moment because of the focus. But if you zoom in, you might just see that. And what else has happened? I'm working primarily in Chingari now. I think I mentioned that last time. But doing quite a few treatments every day, working with the 3 physiotherapists in the main or the first clinic that they've got there. Sanjay, the head physio, Uma, who's also been there quite a long time, and Rishi, who has been there for about 5 years, I think now. And so we work all that during the day. It keeps me quite busy, although they not always tend to take their clients first. There's 1 or 2 clients who seem always like to come and see me, which is an interesting Prachi, who I have mentioned before and appears sometimes when I do talks. She's now this big instead of being this big, which was the last time I worked on her she was, and coming along very well indeed, actually. She's got cerebral palsy, and quite seriously cerebral palsy. She can't speak. I suppose she is what now? She must be 10-ish, I suppose, at any rate, maybe 12. And she can't speak. She's just beginning to stand up, but she can't balance. So we have to hold her as we do exercises with her. And she doesn't concentrate terribly well, which is natural for a child with this condition. But making good progress, I would say, within her own capabilities. So I'm enjoying that. I like working with the children in Chingari. Even if it makes me feel by the end of the day quite tired, at least I know I've actually done some good work for the time. I've met a few other people. I was walking around to Chingari on Friday morning, and who would be coming the other way down the road, but Mahfouz and Mushtaq. Mahfouz, a young man, he has 1 leg shorter than the other. He doesn't even touch the ground, even with his foot drooping down. So he walks all the time with crutches, and they walk from maybe about half a kilometre, maybe a kilometre away where they live. Mushtaq is his father and had a stroke some while ago. I had given him some treatments in the past, hence the recognition, and we had smiles all round. And it reminded me that I often get recognised more here than I do in, let's say, Birmingham, where I've been living just before I came out here with my sister, or even in the other places where I'm a more frequent resident. So that was quite nice, meeting them and have them recognise me as well. In fact, a lot of the children, well, not a lot, some of the children in Chingari also are recognising me, which is, again, very nice that they... 5 years. It's 5 years since I worked there. I was looking at a while back, And so if they can still remember me from 5 years ago, then that's quite nice. I like that. And we had an interesting trip yesterday. The clinic has been keeping donations over the years, mostly in euros. So they had a lot of euros they wanted to change into Indian rupees, of course. But the limits on an Indian national these days are lower than those for a foreigner. So they asked us if we would do the change, because recently there has been a government edict that has taken a foreign exchange license away from many NGOs, including Sambhavna and Chingari trusts. So that's made quite a big difference to them. So we went to the new market area, which I'd not been to before on this trip yet. So that was the first time. But the bank, their internet system wasn't working, so they couldn't do the transaction. I would guess that's probably because they couldn't find out what the live exchange rates were. So we had to go a little bit further, in fact quite a lot further, down to an area of Bhopal in the south called MP Nagar, which is one of the posher areas, shall we say. And we sat in the Thomas Cook office, and we did the transaction went quite quickly, and then it took a long time in the back office to do all the counting out of the rupees and so on to get back. So that took a little bit of time, and then Torsten and I, it took two of us for the amounts we needed. Torsten and I then went into the big indoor shopping mall because we just hadn't been there before, and we just decided we'd go there, and that's called DB Mall. And we got a few things there. I forgot to get some candles, which I could do with for my room because the light switch is a long way away from where my bed is. So I shall have to try and get that some other day, maybe wandering along the Barassia Road. The other thing that happened this week, which was on, I think, Wednesday evening, it was the birthday of Navreen. Now, Navreen is the husband of Ratna, who is the gardener here, one of the gardeners here, and who often invites me and Torsten and others to her house for dinner. And it's also where I went to teach, not in her house, but that was the link for the teaching. It was her sister, Mahendra's son, who originally asked me if I would go and do some teaching or go to his class, was what he asked me. He didn't ask me to do the teaching. It was only when I got there that I found myself teaching, and that was on my last trip here. So it was very nice to meet up with all the family. It's quite a big and complicated family, and I was trying to explain it with Dr. Ram, who's the new doctor, all the ins and outs of the different people who were there that evening, and he got entirely confused with all the relationships that were going on and who was where. Now, Mahendra and Ratna live in adjacent houses, and there's a connection across the top of the roofs, and we actually chose the best night we could have chosen at the time because it was a warm evening. And there was a fire on the roof, and we were making food. Well, I use the royal we, that means they were making the food, and that was a very enjoyable evening. So it's been an exciting week, and I hope you've enjoyed this little update. I'll be in touch with you again in a week or so's time, and look out for the interview I did of Dr. Ram also. That will be up on the YouTube channel very shortly. Bye for now.